Let's talk about the hair as an intermediary step in the hair. It's not completely finished. I like to live with the work and think about it as I work on it and make adjustments. And usually the adjustments are where something doesn't quite feel right. So live with it a little while and then make the changes. Don't try to make the changes without being able to intuit the problems you may be facing. Now again, on the hair pulls from the scalp generally and then starts expanding and expands gradually towards the shoulders. I also like to use the hair as a ploy to frame the face, but only on one side usually. I don't want the frame too tightly framed. Sometimes if you pull the hair past the eyebrows and past the nose to where the hair blocks the face, it can be desirable, but it can also be very difficult to clear out in stone. So sometimes having the face fully exposed to a certain extent. The thing about working in the marble, bringing this to the marble, is that little hair against the cheek. We can make that extremely feather-like and almost invisible. Now, those curves that I'm working on right now, I need to pay attention to the parabola of the curve. It needs to either start out thick and end up thin, or start out thin and end up thick, but change the variation of the depth of the hair. If you've seen some of the Bruno Lucchesi films where he will work, or read any of his books, you'll see that he'll work on something like the hair for hours and then all of a sudden towards the end change it entirely. And that's your prerogative. You're the one who sees the work, and it's you that can make a decision on whether you want to keep it. Sometimes I think holding on to it, the results is not a benefit. To be able to let go of the attachment to your results is really important. It's a sense of play, and nothing can be more playful and whimsical than playing with the locks and curls of the hair, but not so much that it becomes drudgery when you're trying to remove the stone. Now, a portion that I see right above my knuckles there is a big indent, is a big hollow. That big hollow in there, I don't feel so good about today. I'll probably end up changing that quite a bit. Let's spend a little time talking about the movement of hair. I need to deal first of all with certain things that bother me about the hair. This hair coil right here has a little bit too much of a hollow feeling to it. So somewhere in between the parameters of that line, I'll turn that hollow into a coil that will join the coil below, give it a lot more elegance. These big hollows should be avoided. Now let's talk about the movement of the hair. Here I get the first movement because I'm looking at the eyes going into the hair, so that's where my eye is drawn first. Then the next direction is the next major movement. Notice how the lines radiate. Then it drops down, and then it'll start radiating again from this point. Again, another radiating point. Now, to check our work, it's always fun to place a golden rectangle over the work and adjust it in various aspects. First, I look at the coils, the center of the coils, where it's tight and how it radiates into the head. Then I will move that rectangle to a different aspect where the coils are tightened and see how it aligns with the face. And again, if we once more, if we use the eye as the center point for the focal and radiate out from the point, now we see the major movement. One of the elegant things about carving the hair that you can do in clay, adopting clay, is using tools that reflect similarly to that of a chisel. Now we have different sizes of flats, which are a chisel that goes straight across, and a round, which would be a rondelle, a round shape. One of the things that makes hair very elegant is going from a large round shape tool, wire tool, slicing in with a broad stroke, and then going to more narrow and narrow and narrow round tools. I'll show this later on to the extreme, but notice I'm using a round tool and modeling how I would want to approach this carving. It was a sort of obsession that I need to talk about this. That hollow just really disturbs me. Now, one thing we need to talk about in sculpture is what they call in sculpture color. Now, if you blue your eyes at it and you see how it's all broken up with little dark areas, we want to even that color out, not dig. One thing you don't want to do in sculpture is dig into your sculpture. So here I'm in violation of one of my own rules. So I need to pay careful attention to those values, that they don't become too radical and that I'm not just digging, creating these dark shadows. We want to even that out and make it more gentle to the eye. So one of the things we want to do is to be able to hide our mistakes before we present them to the public. So this is an inside that we don't generally want the public to know about our work. To make a sloppy paraphrase of Alan Watts, he said, fundamental to art and science is a fundamental goofing off. We play at the work. We don't work our work. A mathematician will work on math as a beautiful equation will be a sense of play. Same way with we don't work the instrument, we play the instrument. And you see here, I'm just playing with hard and soft edges. And I'm probably not even cognizant that any deadline has to be met. My mind is off in some other realm. I don't know where it is. It's just going off. Now I can see a problem with that line is that there's too many parallel lines. Pay attention to the edges, hard and soft edges, how they merge into each other. That is the fun of it all. I like to avoid shapes that are too similar. Now, if you see this shape on the left side as opposed to the right side reflected, it's disturbing because it's kind of a parallel movement. It would be much better if I made the shape on the left more complex and the shape on the right less complex. So reducing that curve just slightly, or bringing another slight coil out, but making a broader shape, would be much more interesting and less disturbing to the eye. Now this next sequence, you'll notice I'm using a large round tool. This will represent a large rondelle and creating beautiful, elegant shapes, curving them so that one curve moves into the next curve. It's like music. And then subsequently I'll use a smaller rondelle and a smaller rondelle. It's always best to start with big tools, get the big movements first, then move into the finer movements. One should always avoid digging. And this hair, I'm really digging in. It really disturbs me. I went digging way too fast. Make those gentle edges so that they become beautiful, pleasing to the eye. I'm constantly reminded that I need to do yoga and meditation. I don't think many people meditate as often as I do. I'm in a constant state of meditation when I work. I mean, it's actually like drugs. It's a form of getting high. And I need to devise a way to work so that I'm not getting high off my work. If I were to live lives by society's games, um, being responsible, paying my help for my health insurance, uh, working for an IRA account, uh, basically being a normal person. With my skill set, the only thing I could probably do is flip hamburgers at McDonald's. It's a sad state of affairs when we in the arts should work at McDonald's because society tells us that that's where we're truly valued, to enrich the corporations monetarily, but they don't see how we may enrich the world around us. So I'm constantly torn. I should be paying for my insurance premiums, and I should be working for a retirement. So truly mad expectations of society upon those of us who want to work in the arts. I have a choice. I can get up and face the day like a responsible person and put on my trousers and go get a job at McDonald's, pay my insurance premiums. Or I can sneak off to Axner and pick up a box of clay, or run up to Georgia and pick up some blocks of marble. Now, what am I going to do with my day? I choose to do something interesting. You know, I don't know about heaven and hell, but to work at McDonald's to enrich some corporate, greedy, gluttonous person, or make something beautiful, I choose to do something interesting with my day. I've worked as an amanuensis for many artists and foundries, helping them do their enlarging. But it's disheartening to see over the last 20 years where you can do a life-size piece in 2 weeks, but they choose to do a foam model instead. And where's the joy in that? I see so many people say that they do sculpture, and really what they're doing is they're draping mannequins with clothes, painting epoxy resin on them, modeling a head in clay, sticking it on the top of the mannequin, then making a mold, casting it into bronze, and calling that sculpture. That's not sculpture. Sculpture is understanding the beauty of the fold, seeing that the delicate eye of the fold and the belly of the fold and the drapery, and being able to control where that drapery is going. But to not want to understand the way the drapery falls, the way hair falls, to me is, why do art? You're just another gluttonous pig on the bandwagon to just make money. And making money is great. You got to make money at this. But to not want to study that is just beyond me. I just cannot understand that. But as these techniques and tend to dominate, people, what we have lost in the United States in the last 50 years is to be able to look at a beautiful sculpture and see the beauty that is emerging before our eyes. But this constant making things into bronze just for the sake of making it into bronze is just fatuous. Now here is a quick demonstration on a very small scale of a hair coil. This coil will probably be paper thin in the final stages. Notice I put a little sausage of clay up there, give it a slight twist, merge the edges into the head, and then put a twist into the coil. That's as simple as that. That's a hair coil. Author of several books on painting and truly a master of painter is Richard Schmid. And he said the best way to critique a work is to do a work. I wholeheartedly agree with this. It was Jack Levine who said, a critic is somebody who goes on the battlefield after the battle's been fought and shoots the wounded. Every point of your work is composition, from just laying up the armature to first touching the clay to every step. Now it's crucial to really control your light so that you can see the form and judge the form. I read from left to right. I am right-handed, so I work from left to right. And so I light my work a lot of times from left to right. But it's a good idea to light your work from right to left and vary that lighting. And when you're in the final stages, then you use a traveling light, hold the light in your hand, and put it across the form to see where there are large surface defects. And boy, you will find them. I guarantee you that. Here comes a small hair coil. I want to draw your attention to the dark shape that is taking place on the right side of the angel motif. I've often, and it is so apparent, many educators, even educators, say when they talk about composition, they talk about positive space and negative space. And I'd like to point out that that's a fallacy. There's no such thing as negative space. It's solid in space. So look at the solid form and look at the spatial form. Now, there is such a thing as positive shape and negative shape. So we can use negative shape, but there's no such thing as negative space. And when educators don't think about the words that they choose, I think that's a sad state of affair. These are actually educators who actually use the term negative space. Impossible. Now, it's important to notice the eye of the curl here. What we want is variation and repetition with variation. But notice how all the curls, the eye of the curls, are all the same shape and same size. Now that's something to avoid. Avoid, even while they move, that's fine, but the shape is too similar. You have 3 repeating shapes which are like a rubber stamp. So I need to go in there and fix those shapes.